Good evening and welcome to day 40 of our Lenten retreat. And I do apologize to those on Facebook, but I've not been able to add or subtract or add the videos to evening prayer because I've been unable to access Facebook the last 2 hours. But here we are, and it's wonderful to welcome you, dear Betty, here on YouTube for our Lenten retreat. And I pray that you're well. So we begin our Lenten retreat on this beautiful day, Palm Sunday. So let us just be still and come into the presence of God. Just relax and just sense the peace of God. Be still, my soul. Be still and know that I am with you, says the Lord. I came that you may have life, and that you might have it to the full. Amen. And good evening, dear Sister Deirdre, and Shalom Alaikum, dear Sister Jerry, and pray you're well there across the pond. So in the stillness of this moment, we give thanks. We give thanks for our many blessings. And this evening I dedicate all of this time with you for the glory and the highest good of all present. And we welcome our dear brother Jan on Facebook. And apologies, dear brother Jan, I've not been able to access Facebook since I finished evening prayer. That's probably a blessing. Let us share with you our first reflection, and it's from the late Father Henry J.M. Nouven, whom I know, dear brother Jan, is one of your favorite authors. And for this Passion Sunday or Palm Sunday, we have a theme: eradicate blame. What does he mean by eradicating blame? Well, let's read on. We spend a lot of energy wondering who can be blamed for our own or other people's tragedies. That's a good one. Do we blame our parents, ourselves, the immigrants, the Jews, the gays, the blacks, the fundamentalists, the Catholics? The list is endless, because it's so easy to blame someone else than to look into ourselves. And I guess I was guilty of that as a young monk. It was so easy to blame another. And pride is one of the greatest obstacles to facing your true self. But he says, but Jesus doesn't allow us to solve our own or other people's problems through blame. Okay? The challenge he poses is to discern in the midst of our darkness what? The light of God. We are empowered by the Holy Spirit to be still and to invoke the Christ and ask him to come to our aid. In Jesus' vision, everything, even the greatest tragedy, can become an occasion in which God's works can be revealed, like what we're all going through at this moment around the world with the virus, this pandemic that has changed everybody's outlook on life. Well, it's changed mine. Because when it curtails your activities of going out and chatting with your neighbors and your friends in the supermarket to cheer them up, or they cheer you up, you're forced to look at things. And I truly do believe that there's a plus for all of us being in lockdown, to revisit our life story, to visit the things we do, the multitasking, meeting ourselves coming back. And I'm as guilty as anybody. Initially, 3 weeks ago tomorrow, when I became sort of not incarcerated, but isolated from going out and about, I fought like a wild cat. I don't want to be restrained. But I've come to terms with it now. In fact, I quite enjoy it, because it's allowed me to be able to prioritize and become more focused. And instead of rushing around like a headless chicken, trying to do ABC and 1 to 11, I'm able to just do one thing at a time and enjoy it. Whereas before, everything becomes a chore, a task. But now you can sort of just pace yourself. Is that how you feel, being in lockdown? It gives you time to pray, time to be still. But also what Jesus is doing in my life is that certain things are coming up that I thought I dealt with years ago. But I think they're coming up not for me to relive the nightmare or the pain, but to let go, to bless everything and let it go. Get rid of the baggage. We do carry a lot of surplus baggage. We do. It says here, how radically new my life would be if I were willing to move beyond blaming to proclaiming the works of God. All human beings have their tragedies. Yes, we do. We seldom have much control over them. How true. But do we choose to live them as occasions to blame, or as occasions to see God at work? Well, with the virus that's sweeping every country of the world practically, it gives a different light on things. You become more focused, and you begin to appreciate the things you've taken for granted. Family, friends, loved ones. You begin to value the life that God has given you, the gifts that God has given you, and being able probably to receive love. I don't mean sexual love. I mean the love of a good friend, being able to listen. Being able to understand that this inconvenience that we all have to go through isn't really an inconvenience on the spiritual path. In fact, it's an opportunity to get to know the beloved, or whoever your God is, to make time to be still, to fall in love again with your first love. It also, this pandemic and the isolation and being cut off or in lockdown or lockup, choose whichever word you want, but not being able to go out and do the things you'd like to, like going into the woods with the dogs, walking along the coast, the sea coast, watching the tide coming in, looking up at the clouds, the formation, the messages, meeting friends. There are other blessings in the curtailment of our activities, because we can sit with nature. We can understand, how does Mother Earth feel with all that's gone on, with all the negative energy being dumped on her. You can sit and admire the beautiful spring flowers, the daffodils, the tulips, listening to the birds sing. Make time to fall in love with nature and allow nature fall in love with you. I can honestly say that the last 2 weeks of my own curtailment, I have found many blessings. Whereas for some, it's been a nightmare. Being cooped up in their bedsit, not being able to go out. But it does strengthen your character, and it forces you to face yourself, to face your greatest fear. Because we all have fears. But do we allow them to destroy us? Or do we bring them in and heal them? And for those of us who have a belief in a God, we call on our God and we ask for strength to face the inevitable and give it to God and let God heal us. But it takes a willingness and an openness and an acceptance that we're human and that we may have messed up many times, as I have, got it wrong. And the good thing about slowing down and one's activities being curtailed is that it allows you to appreciate the quality of time, the quality of each moment. I've digressed, and I apologize. Saint John chapter 9 verses 1 to 5 talks about the blindness and the blame. And yes, it's so easy to blame another than face one's own culpability. As Jesus walked along, he saw a blind man from birth, and his disciples asked him, "Rabbi, who sinned, this man or his parents, that he was born blind?" But Jesus answered them, "Neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him." That God's works might be revealed in him. We must work the works of him who sent me while it is day. Night is coming when no one can work. As long as I'm in the world, I am the light of the world. But there's one sentence there that really is challenging me in a loving way. And it's the words, neither this man nor his parents sinned. He was born blind so that God's works might be revealed in him. I remember many years ago in Warren Point, County Down, I was only a young nursing monk doing psychiatry, and we had a patient there who had lots of disabilities. If I remember correctly, they couldn't see or hear. and everything was done through touch. And it was my first encounter with seeing someone who couldn't see, who couldn't hear, and they couldn't speak. So it was all done through sensory and through touch. And I'm thinking, why would God create and allow this to happen? And over the years, I've looked back and realized, because God touches lives in a profound way through such situations. But at the time I was inexperienced and I struggled. How do I connect with someone who can't see me, who can't hear me, and who can't respond to me? But they could. In a strange way, they could. And it was through touch. And it was all to do with how you approach them with dignity. And I truly believe that if we're stuck in our sinfulness and we're always blaming others rather than ourselves, or if we blame ourselves too much and find it hard to forgive ourselves, something we've done, like a young woman who came from Ireland to England to have an abortion when I was a young student nurse as a nursing monk. 1972, the poor girl was besotted with guilt. Besotted with guilt. She was a devout Catholic, but she had to come to England because it was illegal in Ireland. And she'd been raped by a member of her family. And the poor girl, I think she was in her late teens, it was so difficult to console her. But the ward sister asked for me to go and have a chat with her because she knew I was a nursing monk. And I just put my arms around her and said to her, God is a forgiving God. What happened to you was a gross miscarriage of justice. And she was so afraid. She wanted to keep the child, but she'd no means. Her family disowned her. They blamed her for being cheap. And it wasn't that at all. They were blaming her instead of blaming themselves. And she was like the scapegoat who carried their guilt. And the interaction that we had was so profoundly humbling. And she carried this. She went through with it. And all she needed was love. Love. She'd done nothing wrong because she was raped. But then when we shared with her that God is a loving God and that she wouldn't go to hell, and we had a few of the ward sisters who were devout Catholics, and they rallied round her and supported her. In fact, I think Madge gave her a room to help her build her life up. So out of every tragedy, there can be many blessings if we're willing to share. If we're willing to share. There's a prayer. My God and my refuge, strip away my habit of blaming either others or myself for any big or little tragedies in my life. Challenge me to move beyond the blame game, to understand that these misfortunes and setbacks are not under my control. Teach me instead to live through these events and see them as fruitful opportunities for faith and love. Amen. That is a powerful reflection. And you will have met individuals in your life that their own tragedy will have touched you. Their courage, their tenacity. And I truly do believe that God uses the most horrendous situations to change lives of others, like the patient in Northern Ireland, deaf, dumb and blind, and having to learn a new skill called therapeutic touch. By being willing to sit with the person, by being willing to be open, by being willing to be humble, and to listen to your heart, to be guided by your heart, because your heart always guides you what to do, but your heart would never ask you to blame yourself. If you did something wrong, you asked for forgiveness, but you don't go blaming others, which many of us do. So it gives us a Lenten action. He says, review past episodes of your life when you were determined to blame others for destructive events. Did you finally acknowledge that blaming is a way to avoid seeing God's hand at work in your life? That's profound. Are you still relying on blame as a way out today? If so, in what way? Are there community scapegoats who are blamed for disastrous occurrences? How can those whom we set up as scapegoats be exonerated? You may also want to observe the tradition of eating figs on Palm Sunday. Never knew that. And decorating your home with pussy willow. Or you may wish to select and address Easter cards. Well, if you can see behind me, you'll probably see it in the morning. We always have an Easter tree in the monastery. Mother Olivia made us lots of little Easter eggs with ribbons and stuff, and we put them in the dining room. But there were a few left over, so Brother Rob put them on a plant here behind me. And it's a lovely reminder, the Easter tree, where God brings blessings when you least expect. So let us finish that one. Let's come to Francis. And let's see what our brother Francis has to say with us. Right, the cross is before us. This is the reflection for today. They took branches of palm trees and they went out to meet him. John 12, verse 13. The cross is before us now with its wordless challenge to love beyond death. To love beyond death. Take some time this week to think about events in your own life that have given you an experience of Jesus' command to pick up your cross and follow him. To pick up your cross and follow him. St. Clare was one of the first followers of St. Francis, raised in a wealthy family whose home overlooked the piazza of Assisi's cathedral. She must have heard Francis preaching often. In fact, they were childhood sweethearts, Francis and Clare. Their families were well connected and they loved playing together as children. And it's a beautiful story. Moved by his radical message of gospel poverty, she made up her mind and she followed him and his companions. And he gave her the habit, but realizing her parents were determined to marry her off to some wealthy family, Frances accepted her vows, and it was the local Benedictine nuns in Assisi that took her in and offered her sanctuary so as to keep the family away. On the night of Palm Sunday in 1212, she left her home and walked through the darkened streets to the gate that had led her to her new life. It can be difficult for us to imagine what a drastic decision this was for Claire. We too are called to move out of our comfort zones, to take steps to follow the gospel more radically in our own lives. They might be small steps, or they might be as drastic as Claire leaving home to work among the poor and the lepers. What these steps have in common is faith that God is leading us on his journey. And just as Francis and his brothers welcomed Claire, the communion of saints encourages us on our way. And his prayer: Most High, glorious God, bring light to the darkness of my heart. Give me right faith, certain hope, and perfect charity. Lord, give me insight and wisdom so that I might always discern your holy and true will. Amen. Shall I read that again? Most High, glorious God, bring light to the darkness of my heart. Give me right faith, certain hope, and perfect charity. Lord, give me insight and wisdom so that I might always discern your holy and true will. Amen. Amen. Do you struggle discerning God's will for your life? Do you struggle at times to discern what God's plans are for you? There's a challenge. Put it another way, how would you be able to discern God's will for your life? Because God has a plan for you and me. And often the plans that we think he's got for us are really not God's plans, but our false ego dictating to us, pampering us. But how would you be able to discern his will? Well, it's taken me over 50 years to work that one out. And it is to sit quietly and to ask God to speak to your heart. To ask him to place it on your heart. Or when you go to bed, ask the Lord to speak to your subconscious mind and place it in a dream. Often dreams are a wonderful way of being able to discern. We underestimate the power of dreams, because I truly believe Spirit does speak to us in our dreams. We can get messages in our dreams. But for me, if I'm unsure that what I've received is of God, I always test it in case it's not of God, but from a dark energy, by using my Teo cross, because it's sacred wood, and just douse and ask God for a yes or no answer. Or I would ask God, is this a yes? Is this from you, Lord? Yes or no? And I would do it 3 times. And inevitably, you're able to discern And it does work. So you can use your Teo cross as a form of divination to discern God's will for your life. Let's play something. I didn't really have much chance with problems with Facebook and trying to get online to Facebook to be able to go through all the various songs that we have. But somehow I was guided to this one at the last minute, at 2 minutes to 8. You're going to be okay. So if you just bear with me, I'll play it for you and see what Spirit is saying to your heart. So just sit back and relax.
I know it's all you've got to just be strong. And it's a fight just to keep it together. I know you think that you are too far gone, but hope is never lost. Hope is never lost. Hold on, don't let go. Hey, hold on, don't let go. Just stay one step closer, one foot in front of the other. You'll get through this. Just follow the light. You're gonna be okay. I know your heart is heavy from those nights. Just remember that you are a fighter. You never know just what tomorrow holds. And you're stronger than you know. You're stronger than you know. Hold on, don't let go. Yeah, hold on, don't let go. Just stay one step closer, one foot in front of the other. You'll get through this. Just follow the light and darkness. One step closer, one foot in front of the other. You'll get through this. Just follow the light and darkness. You're gonna be okay. And when the night is closing, don't give up and don't give in. This won't last, it's not the end. It's not the end, you're gonna be okay. When the night is closing, don't give up and don't give in. This won't last, it's not the end. It's not the end, you're gonna be okay.
That was a profound song. You're going to be okay. You're going to be okay. We come now to our third reflection from the little book of Lent. And for our reflection, appropriately named the triumphal entry. Mile after uphill mile, it seems a long way even today in a car. You wind up through the sandy hills from Jericho, the lowest point on the face of the earth, through the Judean desert climbing all the way. Halfway up, you reach sea level. You've already climbed a long way from the Jordan Valley, and you still have to ascend a fair-sized mountain. It is almost always hot. Since it seldom ever rains, it's almost always dusty as well. That was the way the pilgrims came, with Jesus going on ahead as he'd planned all along. This was to be the climax of his story, of his public career, of his vocation. He knew well enough what lay ahead and had set his face to go and meet it head on. Wow. He couldn't stop announcing the kingdom, but that announcement could only come true if he now embodied in himself the things that he'd been talking about. The living God was at work to heal and save, and the forces of evil were massed to oppose him, like Pharaoh and the armies of Egypt, trying to prevent the Israelites from leaving. But this was to be the moment of God's new exodus. This was to be the moment of God's new exodus, God's great Passover, and nothing could stop Jesus going ahead to celebrate it. For Jesus, it's a royal occasion, to be carefully planned and staged so as to make exactly the right point. The animal he chose, presumably by pre-arrangement with the owners, this wasn't the first time Jesus had been to Bethany. Was a young foal, almost certainly a donkey's colt, like the tomb in which Jesus would lie a week later. It had never been used before. The disciples pick up the theme, and in a kind of instant royal celebration, they spread cloaks along the road for him. Can you imagine it? They're so excited. They throw their cloaks on the dusty roads for the young colt with Jesus on it. Oh, it must have been an amazing sight. Yeah. It goes on to say, it goes on to say, where are we? The disciples pick up the theme, and in a kind of instant royal celebration, we've done that. Down they go, down the steep path to the Kedron Valley, and the crowd starts to sing part of the great psalm of praise, Psalm 118, that pilgrims always sang on the way to Jerusalem. It was a song of victory, a hymn of praise to God who defeats all his foes and establishes his kingdom. Oh, wow. Jesus will himself quote from the psalm in one of his debates in Jerusalem. He comes himself as the fulfillment of the nation's hopes, answering their longings for a king who would bring peace to earth from heaven itself. And yet the grumblers are still there. Some Pharisees, going along with the crowd, suddenly become anxious about what will happen if the authorities in Jerusalem think for a minute that there's a messianic demonstration going on in their midst. Jesus knows, and Luke knows, and we know what awaits the Master when he gets to the city. From Jesus' point of view, this is why there is such a celebration in the first place. It is appropriate precisely because he is coming to bring God's salvation. God's great exodus through his own Passover action on the cross. Had the crowds known this, they would have been puzzled and distressed. Can you imagine it? As indeed they soon will be. And as we arrive at Jerusalem with Jesus, the question presses upon us, are we going along for the trip in the hope that Jesus will fulfill some of our hopes and desires? Are we ready to sing the psalm of praise, but only as long as Jesus seems to be doing what we want, not what he wants? The long, dusty pilgrim way of our lives give most of us plenty of time to sort out our motives for following Jesus in the first place. But are we ready not only to spread our cloaks on the road in front of him, to do that showy, flamboyant thing, but also now to follow him into trouble, controversy, trial, and death? There's the challenge. Do you only follow Jesus when things are going well for you and you're on a high and everything's hunky-dory and rosy in the back garden? Or do you stay with him, lean on him when you go through those lean times, like so many are today? When so many of our brothers and sisters, God's children, are in lockdown and really suffering. Only you can answer the question, what do you want of Jesus? What do you want him to do for you? What would you like him to do for you? Well, let's reflect. Let's spend time coming into the presence of the one who gave up his life for our freedom. Because he did give up his freedom. And I know some various sects say that he didn't die on the cross, that he had a walk in, that Jesus went on to Egypt, to India. Well, you have to believe what you believe. And I don't believe for 1 minute that Jesus died on the cross because I was told to believe it. I think you come to a point in your life when you mature and you go on this amazing journey of discerning, well, did he die on a cross? Or was it just a story, a fairy story? I think you've got to find Jesus for yourself. And you've got to try and come to terms with the reality. Did he or didn't he die for you? I believe he died for me and for you. So I'd like us to just be still. Just be still and relax. Let us come to our heart. A heart that's so often battered and broken, bruised. And for many of us, we've carried a crown of thorns around our heart. Like the young girl who was raped by her family and who had to travel alone out of her own country to make a decision that went against her own principles. Looking back, she reminded me so much of Jesus. Yeah. But where are you on this Palm Sunday? Where do you want to be placed in this amazing journey to Jerusalem? Do you want to take the part of the Pharisee who's there to find fault with Jesus? Or are you one of the Sadducees who's more bothered about image and upholding the letter of the law and ignoring the spirit of the law? Or are you one of the bystanders who's just curious? I'll see which way the wind blows. Or are you a genuine follower who trusts in what your heart's guiding you to do? Even though your heart is telling you to follow him and yet encounter rejection from loved ones, be called all kinds of names, and where you become isolated from family and friends because you dare to follow your heart. Or do you sit on the fence, blaming everybody but yourself for all that's gone wrong in your life? There are so many examples, so many role models that we can each adopt. Or, I don't know why I'm getting this, do you choose to be the little donkey that is led, carrying Christ on his back to wherever he leads you? I think I'd rather be the donkey and be led. To be led. Let us join Jesus. Let us follow him on this triumphal entry into Jerusalem. Let us take up our place. We're overwhelmed by the sound of the beautiful psalm being chanted over and over. The excitement. The people of Israel have lived for this moment, for their Messianic King to come. But the kingdom that they were expecting was not a kingdom that Christ offered. They were expecting a kingdom of gold, wealth. Wow. McDonald's open 24 hours a day with ice cream flowing non-stop. And with all your fantasies granted. Whereas the kingdom Christ promised wasn't here. It was in another dimension. And as you walk alongside him, you're asked to take the donkey to lead this beautiful creature of God through those crowds. And the donkey is a bit scared because of the noise. It's not used to this noise. So you not only lead the donkey, but you put your arm around its neck and you talk to the donkey. You talk to it because it has feelings, because it too is a messenger of God. And it has its rightful place. And the donkey is leaning on you to protect it, so that they take the master to his destination to fulfill the prophecy. And as you go through the crowds, you know in your heart that this is short-lived. And you occasionally feel the hand of Jesus on your shoulder, and you know that this is what he has to do in order to fulfill the prophecies in the scriptures. And all the while, as you're there walking with the donkey, supporting Jesus, there are many people around you who mean well, but you can tell they're not there because they love him. They're there because they're jealous of him. They want what he has, but they're not willing to roll their sleeves up. They're not willing to make the commitment. And there are those who really are keen to follow and who have followed him and who've made great sacrifices to have walked with him this far. And they've no idea what lies ahead. None whatsoever. But you do. You do. And then you see others looking on, and you can tell in their eyes there is no love there. No love. And in the distance you see the high priests in all their fine regalia, looking amazing, with looks of contempt. Who does he think he is? And you see a part of yourself in them. Yes, you see a part of yourself in how they're trying to uphold the letter of the law, and yet they've lost the spirit. They're cold, calculating, and greedy. They've no more interest in serving God than sitting on a donkey as the King of Kings. They want the adulation. They want the power. And they want to control lives and destroy them, to feed and appease their vanity. But why? But why? And suddenly you enter through the gates of the holy city, and the crowds are wild with rejoicing and dancing. and singing the great Hosanna. And you stop. And Jesus dismounts. And the poor little donkey is trembling. And as Jesus goes on, you say to him, "I will see you later, Master." And you take the little donkey away. And you notice something rather beautiful. As you leave the crowds, it's just you and the donkey. And the donkey has feelings. It's as if he understands you. And he keeps rubbing his head against you. And as you go to stroke his neck, you see the sign of the cross on its shoulders, where Jesus blessed God's little creature for being willing to volunteer to carry the Lord on his tiny frame. But what is that saying to you and me? What is the parable of this story? What is the Spirit saying to your heart? What is the Lord saying to you? I sense he's saying he chooses the weak, not the strong. He chooses fools like me. Who is willing to take him at his word. And he chooses you because he knows he can trust you. And he invites us this coming week to enter the mystery. It's a mystery of love, of utter selflessness, where the Son of God empties himself of himself to give his life so that we can be free. Free from what? Free from what? As you settle down with your little friend, the donkey, you feel ever so privileged to have seen a miracle performed. How Jesus rewards the animal kingdom for doing God's work. As he rewards us with our pets, his little messengers. His little messengers brings us so much love. They bring us joy. They bring us comfort. They bring us a sense of closeness to a loving God. They even can teach us to pray. And like Christ, they are like little Christs because they take on board our pain. They know when we're suffering. They know when we're ill. And they cling to us. They lie next to us. And they take on board all our suffering. They are truly God's little helpers. And yet we're cruel to them. But those of us who've been chosen by God to live a simple life, to be detached from the world and attached to His love, He always brings to us special pets, like here, the rescued hens, the rescued doves, our rescues, Brother Sid and Brother Louis. They bring so much love. And they help you laugh when you're sad. They give you an inner strength to cope when you're really down. And when you hold them and they settle on your lap, you can almost feel that you're holding the divine, or the divine is holding you. And as a Franciscan like Francis, he didn't go looking for the animals. They found him. They found him. Because like Jesus and his followers, they felt safe with him. And I truly do believe the world needs more Franciscans who can take care of God's little creatures, because they are God's prayer partners. Because they do lead us back to God. And they allow us to go through our own passion, our own crucifixion, in the knowledge that they will be there for us, that they will walk with us as we walk with Jesus in the coming days, in spirit. Just visualize, if you have one, your pets beside you. Thank God for them. Because they do exactly what Jesus did. They take on board all our faults and failings, our pains, our sufferings and struggles, so that we could be free to fall in love with the God who loves us. Let us be still now. Let us be still and relax and give thanks to God for the little things we take for granted. The little things like our little pets or nature. And when wildlife sing and the birds sing the great Hosanna, They sing to us every morning and every evening. So there is a blessing in our being locked in, because we can now join with nature in this coming week. And that Passion Week will mean something for us who've said, yes, Lord, I will follow you all the days of my life in your presence. Let us now play this. Let us play this.
In the sun, I believe in the risen one. I believe I overcome by the power of his blood. Amen. Amen. I'm alive because he lives. Amen. Amen. Let my song join the one that never ends, because he lives. I was dead in the grave. I was covered in sin and shame. I heard mercy call my name. He rolled the stone away. Amen. Amen. I'm alive because he lives. Amen. Amen. Let my song join the one that never ends. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, every fear is gone. I know he holds my life, my future in his hands. Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, every fear is gone. I know he holds my life, my future in his hands. Amen. Amen. I'm alive because he lives. 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 Because he lives, I can face tomorrow. Because he lives, every fear is gone. I know he holds my life, my future in his hands. Because he lives. Because he lives.
how do you beat that for an exit? Let us pray. Oh Father, Mother God, help us to understand. Help us to have your mindset in these coming precious days ahead, so that we can commemorate in joy your love, your selfless love, and that we will awake to who you are and what you ask of us, and that you will give us the strength today, tonight, to be your people set apart, to be that light shining in the dark, where so many of your children are wounded, are hurting, and are dying. Let us shoulder them in our prayer with you. Lord, we praise you for this wonderful virtual community that you have brought together. Lord, bless each one gathered here and keep us safe and well till we meet again. Amen. Good night and God bless you. And I do apologize that we've gone over budget and over time, but thank you for giving up your time. God bless you. God bless you. Take care. And lovely to have so many messages here. What's that, Samantha? I have an electric donkey, my electric scooter. Oh, I love it. I am free from our human beliefs about us. And Betty's saying he lives, I can face tomorrow. We can't face tomorrow. I love that with the scooter. Samantha, I have felt Jesus' healing touch and deliverance from the secularism of their sinful. Oh, wow. And Betty, beautiful, we're going to be okay. Yes, we are. No, I have accepted living alone with my puppy. Oh, Samantha. Wow. And dear Deirdre. Well, Deirdre's got a wonderful cat and a lovely dog. Oh, good night and God. And Jerry, forgot about you there. Good night and God bless you. Shalom Alaikum. Thank you for being here. You're an amazing, amazing group. Till we meet again. My scooter.